Welcome to Not Netflix Natters, Series 3, Episode 5, Where Are the Big Ideas? Hi, I'm Jan Falconer. I'm a children's author and a nonna, and this is Not Netflix Natters. This is the place where we pause for a few minutes, notice something about childhood, family life and learning, and perhaps see it from a slightly different perspective. Now today's episode is called Where Are the Big Ideas? Because sometimes the questions that concern people the most are not the ones they ask directly. Sometimes they sit quietly underneath the conversation, just waiting to be noticed. Now, when people say that education isn't what it used to be, I'm not always convinced they're talking about standards. I'm not sure they're even talking about exams and exam results. And I'm not even sure that they're talking about academic performance. I kind of guess that many people are asking a different question. Where are the big ideas? The stories, philosophies, histories and debates that encourage young people to wrestle with questions humanity has been asking for thousands and thousands of years. Now, this isn't an argument against modern education. It certainly isn't an argument against technology. It isn't an argument against artificial intelligence. And it isn't an argument against preparing children for the future. It's simply a question. Alongside all the practical skills we want children to develop, are we still exposing them to ideas that expand their horizons? Because education has always been more than just information and memorizing it. At least I think it should be. So this isn't a new debate. The ancient Greeks were asking similar questions thousands of years ago. For them, education wasn't simply about acquiring knowledge. It was about thinking how to think. Students were encouraged to question, to debate, to reason, to examine different points of view. The goal wasn't to produce identical thinkers. The goal was to help people become thoughtful citizens capable of engaging with the world around them. And if we're honest, those questions remain just as relevant today. What's education for? Is it about employment, citizenship, knowledge, character, critical thinking? Most of us would probably answer yes to all of them. The challenge is balancing those different aims. One of the reasons I find developmental psychologist Urie Bronfenbrenner so compelling is that he reminds us education doesn't happen in isolation. Children develop within a network of influences. Families, schools, friends, communities, libraries, media. Each plays a role. Schools are enormously important, but they have never been the sole source of a child's education. Some of the most influential learning experiences happen elsewhere. A conversation around the dinner table, a story shared with a grandparent, a question asked during a walk, a book that sparks curiosity. These moments seldom appear on a curriculum plan, yet they often stay with us for years. Now, before anyone thinks I'm criticizing schools, let me be absolutely clear. Schools do many extraordinary things well. One of their greatest strengths is bringing children together, socialization. The pandemic reminded us just how important that is. When the schools closed, children lost more than their lesson. Many children lost daily interaction with their friends, opportunities for cooperation, collaboration, shared experiences. The social side of education really matters. Children learn from one another, and that remains one of the greatest strengths of schools. At the same time, it is difficult to ignore how much we now ask schools to do. Schools are expected to educate, safeguard, support well-being, promote online safety, prepare children for employment, help tackle wider social issues. Many of these expectations come from a good intention. Even in Scotland, they're wanting to teach kids how to brush teeth. The question isn't whether these things matter. The question is whether we've become less clear about what the core purpose of education actually is. And perhaps that brings us back to the question that truly interests me. Where are the big ideas? Let me tell you a story. Now, when I was a young girl, I used to go and visit an elderly couple who lived across the road from us, Mr. and Mrs. Carthew. Many times I would just sit with Mr. Carthew and Mrs. Carthew would make a cup of tea or something. Well, Mr. Carthew was reading a book. It was about Socrates, although I thought, just like in Bill and Ted, it was Socrates. I had no idea who Socrates, otherwise known as Socrates, was. I certainly didn't understand philosophy, but that wasn't the point. The point wasn't understanding, not yet anyway. Sometimes curiosity arrives before understanding. Sometimes it arrives years before. When I encountered that idea, that existed beyond my immediate world. There were people, questions, stories, ways of thinking, entire worlds of knowledge that I hadn't discovered yet. And Mr. Carthew, who left me many of his books, had these wonderful books, and I still have them now. Because curiosity begins long before understanding arrives. Sometimes all it takes is a glimpse, a book, a conversation, a question, even a moment, and perhaps a door quietly opens. One that may not fully reveal itself until years later. And today, we rightly place a great deal of importance on practical skills. Literacy matters, numeracy matters, science matters, technology matters, artificial intelligence will undoubtedly matter. But education has traditionally served another purpose too. It's introduced young people to ideas larger than themselves, questions about truth, justice, leadership, identity, community, courage. Great books, stories, philosophies, religions, and traditions of the world have wrestled with these questions for centuries. Exposure to those ideas doesn't tell children what to think. It gives them more about what to think about. And I think that's an important distinction. Education shouldn't simply fill minds. It should expand them. Because when I look back, many of the ideas that have shaped me today didn't arrive through formal lessons. They arrived through exposure, through conversations, through books, through people. Which brings us back to families. Parents don't need to be experts. Grandparents don't need teaching degrees or qualifications. You don't need a degree in philosophy to introduce children to big ideas. What families can do is expose children to them. Visit a library. Watch a documentary together. Read a story. Ask questions at the dinner table. I know we did when we were children. Leave an interesting book lying around the house. Curiosity often starts with small things. The goal isn't having all the answers, not at all. The goal is creating opportunities for questions. And perhaps that's why I care so much about reading. Stories introduce children to worlds that they may never otherwise encounter. They introduce people, places, ideas, possibilities. A story can become a doorway, sometimes a lifelong one. You may not know that the story will matter, which character will stay with the child, which idea will spark a question, and perhaps that's the point. Which is why what we place in front of children actually really matters. Not because we're trying to control what they think, because we're helping expand what they can think about. So before I finish, I'd like to leave you with this question. What big ideas were you exposed to as a child? Was it a book, a teacher, a grandparent, a conversation, a moment that stayed with you? I'd genuinely love to know. So please leave a comment below, because I read every one. And if you'd like more stories, resources and ideas that help children become more confident learners, I'd love you to join the club. Simply visit janfalconer.author.com/join-the-club. It's completely free. You'll find Jan Time resources, family activities, updates from Suki Queen of Cats, and practical ways to help children develop a lifelong love of learning. If you've enjoyed today's Not Netflix Natters, please subscribe and share, because every conversation we have about childhood helps us think more carefully about the world we're creating for the next generation. And sometimes a single idea encountered at the right moment can stay with us for a lifetime. Until the next time, thank you for joining me.